Hey there, it's Anonymous Tea, where we spill the tea anonymously. Hello, 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 everyone. Hello, YouTubers. Hope you guys are all having an amazing day today, sending good vibes, sending positivity, sending blessings, and good energy to each and every single one of you. Thank you so much for tuning in. So today we are talking the Traitors US Season 2. We're talking the latest episode that came out last night, and I am still shook from it because it gave everything it needed to give. Phaedra was the MVP of the episode. A strong second was Peter from The Bachelor, Pilot Pete. Let's get into the episode, all right? So the episode, of course, left off with the cliffhanger of Dan being adamant to murder Bergie. And I knew it was a trap. Even Parvati was trying to tell Dan that this was a trap. Do not do this murder, because potentially it could be a lie. They could have lied about who actually won the shield so that you actually could fall right into the trap. And specifically, only 3 people were told. And, Dan, he was just being so arrogant. And I just didn't understand. I'm like, this is not a good look. And so I was so happy with the egg on his face the moment that Bergie came in through the door. It was glorious at breakfast. Dan was shook, Parvati was shook, and Peter immediately picked up on the vibes and noticed out of the people he told between CT, Dan, and Parvati that CT was the only person who did not look like suspicious, right? Who looked like he was completely clueless, right? Which is most of the cast. Most of the cast is clueless. Most of the cast has not seen the show before. Or are making terrible game moves, because it has been a lot of sloppy gameplay, which we'll get to in a moment. So nonetheless, after that, we had the challenge where the remaining faithfuls and traitors had to go on this journey to assemble this device to catapult some bags that have to hit this bullseye in order for them to win $20,000. They said that they had an hour to do it. It looked like it took longer than an hour to do, and along the way there are ammo boxes for shields that you could pick up and cross along the finish line in the event you wanted to compete to win a shield to protect yourself from being murdered, right? So we have all of that happening. We having Trishelle fight in the water with Kevin to get a shield, armor shield, a green box for the, potentially to compete for the shield. We had, Sandra competing for one. We had Peter competing for one. We had Sheree competing for one, and all of the things, right? And so magically they finished in time, supposedly, but I don't know if that's true. But nonetheless, they were able to at least launch one bag over that hit the bullseye, that hit around the bullseye, just hit the target space, and they were able to win the 20K, and they're up to 95,500, I believe, in the total prize. So after that, pretty much, from the car ride back to the castle to all of the deliberations all day, everybody's eyes are on Parvati and Dan. That basically one of these 2 people were getting banished no matter what. For some reason, I don't understand why Peter only thought that it could have just been either or between Dan or Parvati, and not be suspicious that it can be both of them as well, and not just one or the other. So nonetheless, Peter kept meeting with this alliance that he has out in the open of 5 people, and they kept shutting the door on Parvati, you guys. One time she came in with food, another time she came in, and this was all before, this happened, before the banishment, initially, with all the chaos. And her and Dan were just like walking around trying to work different rooms, see what people were saying, and Dan's up here trying to give, a teaser saying, hey, I've got somebody I'm finally gonna call out at this banishment, at this round table, and all of you guys, you're going to have the person that I've had my eye on. And I was like, oh no, this is going to be a disaster. This is going to be a disaster, and Dan is going to play this completely wrong. And I was right. So we get to the round table, and, finally the spotlight is on as far as, what happened, what took place, everything. you know, we have Peter going in on his theory that he was able to narrow down the traitors to either being Parvati or Dan, and his rationale because of the trap that he set of purposely telling them the wrong person that won the shield, so therefore he was going to go for somebody else on purpose that actually had the shield and would expose him. And so ultimately we get to Dan, and Dan is all, you know, trying to set this up. Raise your hand if you never had anybody vote for you out of banishment. And 5 people raised their hand, including Phaedra and Parvati and Sandra and Sheree and all these things. And Dan is just ruling everybody out based off of nonsense, and then says he is going to hone in on Phaedra because he didn't understand why she gives over-the-top reactions, which makes 0 sense if you've watched Phaedra before. That's all she does is give over-the-top reactions. It's nothing abnormal. And then he said her behavior of comforting Larsa when her boyfriend was murdered was also suspicious, and I'm like, we are just grasping at straws. And then when Bergie was not murdered and he was concerned about Phaedra calling Bergie Burgalicious, which she's been calling him Burgalicious since day one, you know, none of this was moving the needle. And everybody, you know, clocked Dan for what he was doing. Bergie clocked it and was like, why would Phaedra murder me? Why would she get rid of me? I'm one of the people, you know, that's, you know, trust her the most, and we have a really good relationship. If she was a traitor, she would want to keep me to the end. It makes no sense for her to attempt to murder me. And then Kate comes in and she's like, I don't understand why you're making a big deal about Phaedra's facial expressions. Have you seen her on Real Housewives? Like, that's what she does. She is all about extra. And Phaedra then claps back and is like, listen, I am extra. I know I do too much. That's who I am. But today you're doing too much, and I have to compensate for you because you've been doing too little this entire game. And all these things, and now you're doing too much today, trying to, you know, pin this on me because you know you're about to get banished. And I just thought this was so dumb of Dan to do this, and I felt it was kind of sore loser behavior because ultimately he had an opening to utilize this roundtable to put the spotlight on Parvati. He could have exposed, you know, that she was the one that gave the drink to Ekansu, and that also there was a comment when Kate came on to their show that she was never accepting a cup from Parvati. She was never accepting any wine from Parvati because it could be poison, which also should have been a red flag to anybody that heard that comment from Kate as a possibility that she could have been abreast of what was going on at the castle, even though she physically wasn't in the game yet necessarily, or had some other type of intel or what have you, because it doesn't seem random for her to just make a comment like that. And you would have had Parvati on there hook, line, and sinker. It didn't make any sense, you know, Dan trying to come for Phaedra for voting for Ekansu when Phaedra explained it was the drama between Ekansu and Janelle that ultimately she voted for Ekansu because she felt that Ekansu, there were some variations to her story and all these things. And so then our congressman, he is a gem. Casting gold. He drags the heck out of Dan and his foolishness and his ridiculous theories to try to pin this all on Phaedra. And he was on point, and I was so happy because I was like, we got to keep him till the end. We got to keep him. If I was a traitor, I would keep Sheree, Kevin, and this congressman till the very end, you guys, because they have no clue what's happening. They have no clue at all, and even CT to an extent. They have no idea what's going on. They are not on any case for any of these traitors, you guys. They do not care. They're just going to vote with the crowd and just keep it moving. If I was a traitor, I would take them to the very end and be like, gotcha. Because they have no idea what's happening. They are just there for the experience. They're just there for the check. And that's all it is, right? So nonetheless, we get to the vote. everyone is expected votes for Dan, except for Peter votes for Parvati, because he basically says, well, I think, everybody has the votes that they need to get Dan out of here, so I still want to make sure we have Parvati out there. And then Dan does a move I didn't like, I didn't appreciate, which was still put Phaedra's name on there after everybody dragged him and shut him down of Phaedra being a possibility of a traitor, because ultimately, since he has to reveal himself, with him having the most votes and being banished, that he is a traitor, it's now going to put a spotlight on Phaedra. So I had a problem with that because, Trishelle immediately clocked it. And, basically if you're exposed as a traitor, wouldn't you expose another traitor that you would know intimately is one? So I'm kind of 50-50 on how this is going to impact, Phaedra's game. After this, of course, Peter's alliance of 5 people is still meeting together because he keeps saying that he's going to be murdered tonight and all these things. And once again, Parvati's trying to come in, and initially they don't let her in, and then they eventually let her in, and all these other things. And ultimately, we then get to the traitors meeting with Phaedra and Parvati, and Phaedra's up here saying she is pissed that Dan is out here putting her name out here like that. And, Parvati is in her feelings because Peter is completely on to her, and she wanted him murdered, right? She wanted to get rid of him. But then Alan comes in and is like, listen, you have a choice. You could either strengthen yourselves and recruit another traitor, or you could continue murdering. So Phaedra has kind of been in the background as of late with some of these boneheaded decisions that Dan and Parvati have been making. And Parvati is pushing hard to recruit Peter, which I think is a mistake. But she is pushing hard to recruit Peter since Peter's cunning for her. For me, I would have taken out somebody in Peter's alliance to weaken Peter and weaken his numbers so that he's not having this voting power and this influence at these roundtables. That would be my process. And then after we weaken Peter's alliance, then potentially recruit another traitor. And so she is just bent on recruiting Peter as a traitor, and, feels like she could work with him and they can make magic happen. And she thinks she could convince him to turn on his enemies. I don't think that's the case. I think she potentially just handed him the win, because The Bachelor from season 1 also made it to the other one, and also made it to the end, and was also a last-minute recruit as well, and got to the end. So I'm a little bit concerned. And then I kept replaying in my mind the season trailer in which at that round table, Phaedra comes for Peter and is like, this isn't The Bachelor. I don't have to kiss your bleep to give you a rose. And I'm very concerned now because I'm like, I hope this is not limited days for Phaedra. And so my thought process is, since Dan and Parvati were trying to collude to really get rid of Phaedra and it flopped and it failed, now Dan has planted the seed to still, try to gun for Phaedra now that he's exposed as a traitor. And now Parvati is recruiting Peter because Peter is on the traitor case. He is on the traitor hunt and feels that she is utilizing, him. But I feel like they're going to try to work together to take out Phaedra, right? So I think one of two things are possibly going to happen. Either Peter is going to accept and become a traitor as well and immediately target Phaedra, or immediately try to get out Parvati. There's a part of me that feels like if Peter becomes a traitor, that he is going to try to get Parvati to the end and then cut her, and then convince the faithfuls, convince his alliance that all the traitors are gone now, that this was the last traitor and everything else, and that there was only Phaedra, Dan, and Parvati, and not him as a traitor as well. And then they get to the final, reveal, and then he reveals that he was the traitor. Is what I feel like this predictable season is going to happen. I hope that I'm wrong. I hope that, Phaedra is the last traitor standing. I really do. I hope she's able to come out of this, because I feel like she's being sabotaged and she is giving the best television. It would be so dumb of production to, fall for the trap and get rid of her. She needs protection, you guys. She needs absolute protection, because it's obvious to me the cast knew almost immediately that Parvati and Dan were traitors, but it seems that they're very clueless and off the mark, and not suspecting Phaedra at all. And Dan was trying to analyze and give like his quiet approach as to why people need to look at Phaedra, and it just wasn't hitting. It just wasn't hitting. It just wasn't making sense. So I'm very nervous because I feel a certain way. I feel like Dan didn't have to go out the way that he did. And his Hail Mary really should have been exposing the flaws in Peter's traitor strategy and really grilling him on why the assumption that CT is not suspicious of the 3 people he suspected being traitors, but how he's honing in specifically on him and Parvati. And then he should have really went at Parvati and provided factual evidence to, basically back up that she is making the decisions on these murders. I think he could have potentially saved himself, or at least bought him another day or 2 in the castle. And I just felt it was I just didn't like the move of trying to throw Phaedra out here now. And we know none of the Bravo people are going to come for Phaedra because they all seem like they're a close-knit group. So it's really going to be Peter's alliance who are going to dictate, which they said at the round table, they're going to be dictating these future eliminations. Now, hopefully, Bergie can redirect these other people away from Phaedra, and they can move forward with getting Parvati out of here, is what I'm hoping. But so it'll remain to be seen, whether or not Peter is going to accept this or not. I'm not sure whether or not, I couldn't remember in the document if he would be murdered immediately if he doesn't accept. I couldn't, because it varies sometimes, because I've watched like all the different franchises, and so sometimes they just went ahead and murdered the person if they didn't accept, but sometimes if the person didn't accept, they still were able to be in the game if they didn't know who the traitor was, and if they didn't expose it, that they were trying to be recruited and all these things. So I'm a little nervous for Phaedra. I really want Phaedra to get to the end. I really want Phaedra to potentially win this. I think this is perfect for her, regardless of how you feel about her on Housewives. I feel like her role on the show was made for her, and I'm really rooting for her. I really hope she makes it, because she has been so entertaining this entire season. She has been full of surprises. She has been quick on her feet. She is giving you that lawyer, that messiness, that everything that you need. Nothing is scripted or anything like that. She is off the cuff with her reads and her drags of these people. So I am here for it all. I am enjoying it all. The one thing I would say is this gameplay is terrible, though. Especially from the Big Brother people. They're approaching this show as Big Brother, and it's a huge mistake. I feel like even some of the Survivor people, with the exception of Cirie last season, are playing this very sloppily, and are just making very rookie mistakes. And had the rest of the cast been a lot more sharp, they would have been able to clock it a long time ago, and they would have been able to get banished Parvati and Dan like almost immediately, you guys. But they're so, far off in La La Land that they're not even seeing, the rookie mistakes that are taking place. And this is why I hope moving forward, I see a lot of people online that are hoping, for their reality stars they want to recruit for season 3. But here's the thing. I think we need to be alternating. I think we need to have the winter season be an all-star season. And I think we need to have a season that airs later in the year, around the summer or fall, that is a regular season of regular contestants. I feel just with watching both the Australia version as well as the UK version and even the Canada version, there is something about, having in regular people mixed in. I don't even want reality TV mixed in. I want a separate season altogether of just all regular people who are not reality TV, who are not famous, who are not celebrities of any sort, because there's a different level of desperation that exists when you're dealing with people who have a potential to win $250,000. When you're dealing with people who are already semi-famous or semi-known to people, whether it's in reality TV, whether it's a celebrity or what have you, there's not this same level of desperation, right? But some of them, such as Phaedra, such as Janelle, at least know from a reality TV perspective to give us entertaining television. So there is that. But from a gameplay and strategic perspective, not so much. And that is what I'm missing of not having regular people on the show. So I'm hoping for season 3 we go back to a regular cast, because there is just something about the average people from America
being desperate to win this money, how far they're going to go as a traitor, how far they're going to go as a faithful to get out traitors or get people they suspect as traitors. I feel like that is excellent television that you cannot replicate, you guys. You absolutely cannot. Also, I feel like Parvati, if it was me, I would have recruited probably either Kate or MJ, because I feel like Kate or MJ would be the most on the case for these traitors. It didn't make sense to me to work with somebody who's actively gunning for you, because pretty much all Peter has to do is just convince his alliance to continue to gun for Parvati, right? I would have brought somebody else in, like a Kate, who could have came in and redirected and got other people out. So that way she could convince others that, you know, their assessment is wrong and steer the targets away from the other traitors. So I don't think I'm going to like this move. I'm hoping that I'm wrong. I'm hoping that Phaedra somehow gets to the finals in spite of all this sabotage that keeps happening. And I think ultimately the sabotage is because obviously there are people who are jealous, i.e. her fellow traitors, are jealous of how good she's playing in the game. And they continue to underestimate Phaedra, so they keep trying to come for her at these roundtables as a result, to try to get other people, you know, on her radar, and it keeps backfiring. So I'm really hoping that Phaedra can withstand this and really get to this end, you guys. I am hoping for her. So there is that. So let me know your guys' thoughts. What do you guys think of Dan completely just imploding and unnecessarily throwing Phaedra under the bus on this episode? What do you think of Peter and his traitor hunt? Do you think he is going to accept being a traitor, or do you think he is not going to accept and still potentially last on this show as a faithful till the very end? Please let me know in the comments also whether or not you feel that the show should go back to casting regular people for the US version and not just do every season of reality TV stars, because I feel like personally that's going to get lame very quickly, especially in the instance of this cast where most of the cast doesn't know what's happening most of the time. So there's only a handful of people who have been entertainment and keeping the show afloat and carrying the show on their backs, such as Janelle, such as Phaedra. So that remains to be seen as well. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Please do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you're notified the moment I post new content on my channel. And with that being said, I'll talk to you guys again very soon.